Good evening. Welcome to Employment Law Today. I'm your host, Eric Sauver. I'm an employment law and business law attorney at the law office of Eric M. Sauver, and I host this podcast every Tuesday evening at 5 p.m., where I'm joined by guests, where we discuss issues that impact business owners today, issues that affect small business, medium business, entrepreneurs, mainly regarding employment and issues around quality of life, and so forth. And so, in that spirit, I am joined tonight by my guest, Dr. Lance Knaub. Lance, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. So excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to having you on the podcast tonight. I want to introduce you to our audience so they can know a little bit about your background and who you are. I think it sets the stage nicely for our conversation. All right. So my guest this evening, as I mentioned, everyone is Dr. Lance Knaub, and Lance helps entrepreneurs to scale their business and to create the lives that they love while protecting and improving their health, especially during times of overwhelm and extreme stress. I know we've all felt that in the last 16 months. Lance is the founder of Breakthru Physical Therapy and Fitness, and a growing multi-million-dollar company whose mission is to be the community's choice in physical therapy and fitness offerings, with over 50 employees and 5 locations. And more recently, Lance founded Denali Consulting to help entrepreneurs create their visions and build businesses that are a valuable asset, which can run without them operating day to day for short or extended periods of time, and instead are operated by their fearless team. Dr. Knob's first publication, The 4% Breakthrough, an Amazon bestseller, shares all of his hard earned lessons with entrepreneurs and leaders to help them save years of time, to avoid burnout and overstress, and to prevent them from joining the 96% of small business owners who fail within 10 years. It's quite a number. Lance is an entrepreneur. He's a doctor of physical therapy, a certified strength and conditioning specialist, an adjunct assistant professor at Rutgers University's Doctor of Physical Therapy program. And Dr. Lance Knaub lives with his wife and 3 children in Medford, New Jersey, fellow New Jersey, out there. So, Lance, I think, wow, it's a very impressive background, and it's great to have you on the podcast tonight. Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a great intro. Appreciate it.
Sure
And
thing,
excited,
sure
yeah,
thing.
excited to be here.
Great. So, okay. So, I want to just talk about a little bit about our topic for the evening that you and I have discussed a bit. And that topic is, I think, very relevant to people listening tonight. It's work life balance after COVID, finding that work life balance, work life integration, if you will. And basically, we're talking about that with this ever changing workforce during the pandemic. We went from remote to hybrid and everything in between. And many business owners are and employees as well are struggling to find a new work-life balance. And the question becomes, how do you find that work-life balance? How do you avoid burnout? How do you reach your business goals? And how do you not violate employment and labor laws in the process around hiring and such? And so my next guest tonight, as I mentioned, is Dr. Lance Knob, and he is a founder of Breakthru Physical Therapy and Fitness and leadership and business consultant at Denali Consulting. And we're going to discuss this highly relevant issue on tonight's episode. So, Lance, yeah, I really think this is an important issue, and I think any time, but I think especially in these times, these very stressful times we're in.
Definitely.
So,
Yeah, I'm excited. Just this morning, I had a talk with a group of entrepreneurs on the topic of burnout, and it was their
mhm.
request to cover this topic. So, more and more relevant. We're going to have a blast tonight.
Great, and yep, looking forward to it for sure. And I thought maybe it'd be interesting, Lance, if you could tell our listeners a little bit more about yourself in terms of what prompted you to found Breakthru Fitness and what inspired you to become a leadership business consultant.
Yeah. So, My wife is, I'm a husband to Jody and father of three children, as you mentioned, Sage,
Mhm.
Aspen, and Sierra.
Well,
Um, Going into just graduated. So now we're going into ninth, seventh, and fifth grade. So that's very exciting in our household.
wow.
Um,
Great.
Grew up in York, Pennsylvania. York, I actually grew up in the country on a 40-acre farm, and it was a great childhood. And went to 12 years of Catholic school, so I have very neat handwriting, and I definitely know my pleases and thank yous first and foremost.
Mhm.
And then, you know, I knew I wanted to be in healthcare. I knew I wanted to help people, and I started out as a pharmacy major at Rutgers, and ultimately discovered physical therapy. Fortunately, I didn't have any injuries in high school, but during my time at Rutgers, a friend of mine was volunteering at Robert Wood Johnson Hospital, Andrea Ehrenheim, and mentioned it to me, and I checked it out and just fell in love.
Mhm.
So after physical therapy school, I did brain injury for a year, and then really found my calling kind of with sports orthopedics and especially functional physical therapy and fitness, and really loved fitness. So my wife and I started a practice in 2004, renting 300 square feet from a small boutique fitness center so that we could
Mm.
bring physical therapy to a place of wellness, because traditionally physical therapy started out in places of sickness and places of injury.
Ah, yes.
So we grew our team. We grew to four and now five locations. And over time, personally, I fell in love with the entrepreneurial part of things. I mean, we had to
Mhm.
really, start without any formal business training and power through the Great Recession and power through, pipes bursting and floods in the middle of the night, and
Mhm.
work the next day in our first year of business, right? We couldn't afford one day off, and we had to power through vent
Mhm.
fans burning and smoke damage and near fires. And then, of course, with your expertise, we had to learn how to, support and manage people
Yes.
and build an infrastructure, and how to hire and recruit and retain great people.
Mm.
So that was all fun. And, I as I said, I fell in love with developing our team and our people, and we took on some of our best physical therapists as equity partners over the years. And in 2018, one of our partners, Nate Stelz, several years prior to that, he expressed interest in running the company. And at first, I probably was a little bit taken aback. But then I realized letting people continue to develop is the ultimate compliment, the ultimate honor, the ultimate win-win. So in
Sure.
2018, I handed over my first child, our first baby,
Yeah.
the business, to him, and he did a great job. And I had to figure out what I was going to do.
Mhm.
So it didn't take me long to realize that I love spending time with entrepreneurs more than anything. That energizes me the most.
Mhm.
And a podcast movement in 2018 in Philadelphia. Lisa Zelenik from Self Publishing School helped me realize how organizing my thoughts into a book would be helpful. So I started that, and I started Denali towards the beginning of the year. It took me a few months because I actually considered franchises and just tried to figure it all out. And it was fun being on that side of the table, almost like Shark Tank, having people present opportunities to me.
Mhm.
But, I was a little too entrepreneurial for a franchise.
Yeah.
So I did two masterminds in 2018 to start, one helping people with existing businesses, and one with people that I knew were aspiring to start businesses. And
Mhm.
that was so much fun. I mean, a close friend of mine, Mike Collins, had worked 25 years as a chocolatier in a local factory. And
Mm.
during my 6-week mastermind, he was giving notice and spreading his wings and starting a new company. So much was happening so fast, and I just fell in love with it. And there's definitely, just as in physical therapy, I love helping people, you know, overcome injuries and get healthy and stay healthy. The
Mm.
same with coaching. I really love connecting the dots with my healthcare background and helping overwhelmed, overstressed entrepreneurs stay healthy
Mhm.
and also create healthy businesses that
Mm.
they're actually paying themselves and they have double digit profitability.
Mhm. It's interesting. There's so much there that it took me back, Lance, in my own entrepreneurial journey, if you will. I started my law practice April 2001, rather, so 20 years ago. And I can remember early on, just you talking about all the things you have to do, all the hats you have to wear. You know, they're not pipes burst. I rented space as an attorney, but I had my variations, versions of that, if you will. And I remember having to just take care of tech issues of my own and all kinds of stuff. But it's interesting. You talk about this love for entrepreneurs and sort of discovering that, you know, that passion, that fire. Because when I first saw your background, I thought, interesting, you're a doctor and a physical therapist and a business coach. And I was like, wow, it's an interesting sort of crossover. But as you're describing it, I can see the parallels in terms of, so you've got someone in PT, they're committed to discipline, training, working, focused on a goal, right? You help them reach the goal with tools, you know, discipline and practice. And I can see how it's almost as if you're putting the business in physical therapy and giving it exercises to do and goals to reach. And so it's interesting to hear you talk about this love of helping people, which I think
Some
is
great
important.
some great similarities in physical therapy. We really want to empower people and we want them to blossom and for them
Mhm.
to need us less and less and them to do more and more. So in physical therapy, we certainly are great practice great coaching and the same thing with coaching consulting as well. So no, there's some great analogies there.
Interesting, yeah, for sure. And you know, Lance, I know you mentioned uh, in terms of your passion, how it started, and everything like that. I'm wondering, you talked about work-life balance. And I know is a focus, like the subset of an issue that we're talking about today, in the grander scheme of things. Wondering, could you share with us some of your personal experience with work-life balance and self-employment over the years?
Absolutely. Of
Yeah.
course.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's very close to me, very close to home. And this is part of my passion for bringing all this together. In 2011, I was burning out. We had
Mm-hmm.
three locations, we had about 30 employees. We just had our third child, and all three of our children were under 4.
Mm.
And I was working 80 plus hours a week, not sleeping enough, not exercising enough, just generally abusing my body.
Mhm.
And my body finally had enough and revolted, and my digestive system, my
Mm.
gastrointestinal system stopped working, and
Mm.
I couldn't eat. I
Mhm.
had a constant abdominal pain, upset. I was either in the bathroom or,
Mm.
embarrassingly running to the bathroom.
Mm.
And, without being able to take in nutrition, I was really totally immobilized
Mm.
and even my legs felt heavy standing. I was very weak. I can remember our July 2011 all staff meeting. I can remember the looks on everyone's face, including our interns. We had our summer interns who were, looking up to me as the leader and of our physical
Mm.
therapists and our managers. And I was trying to power through.
Mm.
And unfortunately, that time there really wasn't anyone else to take over the leadership hat, the CEO hat, the operator hat, or even to treat all of my patients at that time.
Mm.
And we certainly didn't have the infrastructure of, processes and, just, really a mature business yet. So
Mhm.
I persevered. I pulled myself up, I picked myself up, and I developed myself personally, both personally and professionally. I developed myself. Then I
Mhm.
worked on our business fundamentals, which I just kind of mentioned, alluded to. And
Mhm.
lastly, I worked on actionable health and lifestyle improvements. And
Mm.
those are the things that worked for me. Those are the things I'm sharing with all the entrepreneurs that I serve. And, you know, I put all that into a process to help other entrepreneurs. So
Mm.
um, I'm very close to the topic of burnout. And, that's how I'm kind of putting it all together right now.
Right. Wow. I mean, thanks for sharing that experience with us. You know, I think it's good that people can hear the challenges we've had to understand. You know, like kind of like what drives us, what helps us to commit and to feel that passion for what we do. And you know, certainly, I think that your story is. I mean, you're definitely not alone. I can remember times as well with maybe a little different particulars, but in terms of just the work life balance getting like so out of whack, and you know, it becomes like you adjust to that as almost a norm, a new norm. And I think when we look back, when we're healthy, you know, we're more in balance, work life and integration. I think that what I'm finding is that that it's much more sustainable, right? To maybe be working less and to be working. I hate the phrase "smarter not harder." It sounds cliched, but in some ways, there's something to that. I think, and I think that your story really talks about why it's so important to have that, because ultimately our bodies, our minds can be sharp, we can be working and focusing and doing all these job tasks, but if our bodies are breaking down, like if an ultimate breakdown, show's over, and like that's it. We can only do so much. So I think it's really important. I'd love to hear more about, you talked about, like you said, some actionable health and lifestyle. It is our first commercial break, so we're going to take that break now. So you have time afterwards to talk about that. But for those listening
Sounds
tonight,
great.
yeah, for sure. I'm just really looking forward to the rest of our discussion. So, folks, you're listening to Employment Law Today on Talk Radio NYC. I'm your host, Eric Sauber. My guest tonight is Dr. Lance Knaub. We are talking about healthy work-life balance during COVID and after. So stick around. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant. And on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays, 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you interested in having a better relationship with yourself, others, and God? Greetings. I'm your host, Dr. George Andow, for the show A Journey Through into Awareness. On my show, we journey into the awareness that the mind of God is the true seat of our personal consciousness. We join together each Monday at 7 p.m., so tune in on Talk Radio NYC.
Did you know that nearly 1 in 5 adults in the U.S. battles mental illness? Hi, my name is Albert Daba. I'm the host of the show Extra Innings. Extra Innings, I discuss the topics of wellness, mental health, and the experience of surviving multiple suicides within my family. Listen live every Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern to Extra Innings for discussions with sports figures, artists, mental health professionals, and many others. That's Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Welcome back to Employment Law Today. I'm here tonight with my guest, Dr. Lance Knaub, who is the founder of Breakthru Fitness, Breakthru Physical Therapy Fitness, I should say, as well as the founder of Denali Consulting, and talking about this important issue of work-life balance. And before the break, for those that might be joining us late, Lance was sharing about some of his own experience, particularly early on in the business, and having 3 small children at the time, 10 years ago, and having everything to juggle and balance and working 80 plus hours a week. And boy, that can really, add up stress on the body. I think it's just so important that, and I think it's great that you had that background, right, in fitness and health and physical therapy. Hopefully that was, to really carry you through. You mentioned a actionable health and lifestyle sort of plan that you developed for yourself. It sounds interesting. Could you elaborate a little more on what that looks like so our listeners might be able to pick up on it?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, I organized all that information into my book, The 4% Breakthrough.
Mm-hmm.
So the steps that I mentioned earlier, the first section is personal development, the second section is business fundamentals, and the third section is actionable health and lifestyle information. So improvements or changes.
Mm.
So regarding the third section, I start off with mental health, and I specifically try to choose an order that would be a process that people could build on.
Mm.
However, the good thing about these health components, this third section, is no matter where you begin or where you break in, there will be a symbiotic effect, just as there is a negative effect. So the components I talked about were mental health, then nutrition, sleep, then exercise, and lastly, posture and ergonomics, which is a
Mm.
physical therapist's dream. We talk about that a lot
Yeah,
during
yeah.
an average day.
Sure, sure. So interesting categories there. So I guess, and there, what I heard you say a moment ago, it really spoke to me too. It's like, these things are integrated, and if you're healthy in one area and you're focused on like good nutrition and exercise, it can lead to better sleep, and then better sleep makes you perhaps more mentally fit. I could see the synergistic positive effect, and I could also see the synergistic, right, negative effect. Sort of if one is not focused on, for example, mental health and sleep, and then they're like too stressed out and tired to exercise and eating junk food, to alleviate the stress. So interesting that you have that. Yeah, those
And
exact
just to give
concrete.
yeah, and just to give you an example, with
Mhm.
sleep, for example, with motor tasks, the old saying "practice makes perfect" is
Mhm.
actually not true. Practice
Mhm.
followed by a good night's sleep makes
Mhm.
perfect. If you actually perform a task and then get a good night's sleep, you're 20 to 30% better than you were on the best performance the day prior. And
Yeah.
actually, by one night of sleep deprivation,
Mhm.
your the time to physical strength, for example, will decrease 30%.
Mhm.
So some pretty dramatic changes. Really, sleep can be, as an example, can be a superpower, or it can be kryptonite, right, and completely zap all of our strength.
Yes, for sure. Now, is that a big issue? That being, for example, lack of sleep, that you find maybe a mindset or philosophy that business owners have? Because I find often that, I have clients in their startup stage and they have that romanticized idea that you work around the clock, never sleep, and that's how you make the perfect business. Have you seen that with clients or?
Totally, yeah. That's
Mhm.
actually sleep
Mhm.
seems to be the first easiest place people can kind of cut for
Mhm.
sure consistently, and it's a problem. So the recommendation is 7 to 9 hours of sleep,
Mhm.
and there's some pretty significant changes when you start to average lower numbers. Like men to average 4 to 5 hours of sleep,
Mhm.
their testosterone levels are basically a decade older, and there's similar
Mhm.
findings for females reproductive health. Just
Sure.
in general with sleep, the less you sleep, the shorter you live. Your life expectancy exactly lower, and your quality of
Mhm.
life is decreased. And again, just maybe a little, you know I hate to call it scare tactics, but there's a total correlation to Alzheimer's, for example. So
Mhm.
yeah, just like you said, you can connect the dots from a lot of these health components to each other. Sort of the physical and mental health weaves together.
Right. And I imagine you must see that with, your Denali Consulting clients. You've got these businesses that want to grow and they're maybe not getting that, that sleep and so forth, or the extra health in their life. And, how do you say help clients like who maybe their circumstances are such that they're not sleeping, they have a young child in the picture, or maybe they're going through some situation. Do you recommend, anything you recommend in terms of how they approach a business in that situation?
Totally. I think
Mhm.
that going back to what we were talking about earlier, I think there will be some sprints, and that'll be okay as long as you're not always sprinting, right? And then I think another point to consider is being strategic and planning. This is really a big emphasis to me. I think that a lot of entrepreneurs like to go straight to action. And it's especially true of like some real, sort of people that are excellent at sales, and there's some great action takers. But what I like to say is take strategic action. So
Yes.
really every day, every week, every month, every year should line up, and we should be being strategic with that. So going back to the 4% breakthrough process that I created, in that
Mm-hmm.
first section where I'm really asking people to do some thoughtful introspective exercises and get to know themselves, the first 3 steps/chapters. And then the fourth step is using the Myers-Briggs or just established self-assessment tools to really, learn about yourself a little bit more and identify your strengths and weaknesses. And then in the fifth step, you have to make a commitment. It's basically a time map that I call your success schedule. And that's
Hmm.
where I ask people to define their non-negotiables, their sleep time, their exercise, their family. So really, step one, once they just define their purpose, their mission, their reason, their why, they've got to look through that lens and make sure, if it's their family, for example, they are going to prioritize time with their spouse and their child or their children, and so on. And so, putting things in writing is one of the most important things to building a habit. So that
Hmm.
fifth step, the success schedule, is very important. You have to, have a plan. You have to define things. Right now I've got a CEO of a 40+ million dollar company who I've
Hmm.
just started to help, and he carries his gym bag with him in his car all week long, but he can't find the time to exercise. He has no plan. He's just hoping that it just magically happens one
Right.
day, one week, and it's not. It's not going to
Yes.
happen. He's got to pay himself first. Or in the, kind of the emergency response analogy, put on the oxygen mask first so he can go and help other people.
Right. Right. So true. That's a really good point, I think, Lance, about like and this is all, by the way, when you talk about the 4% breakthrough, you're referring to your book that you wrote, which talks
Correct.
about these lessons you learn and you impart them onto entrepreneurs. I think you said something really good there that struck me about, I can relate with my clients in terms of um, having say a plan and writing it down, because the written plan, let's get some dates, let's get some a goal and a written date of when this should be finished by. So for example, let's say drafting employee handbooks and employment contracts, or even just addressing some litigation issues that are coming up. Without a written plan, it's things just don't, as you said, they don't magically happen, right? You can carry the gym bag with you, but if you don't have it on your schedule typed in there, so lunchtime 1 to 2, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'm working out, or 1 to whatever the time may be. It just doesn't happen. So I think it's important. I tell clients that as well, that we need to sit down, make some goals, and I find the ones that do that, it's a better chance they'll follow through than the ones that say, well, we're gonna get to it in Q3 and see what happens. And Q3, as we know, is a pretty big stretch of time there. It's over 3 months. So, but no, good to hear that it is. And I'm wondering, like, in terms of these issues that you see with with clients, let's say, are there any flaws in their operations that might be eating up their time and therefore cutting into like their sleep or their time to go for a walk, or play guitar, or see their wife for lunch or does husband for lunch? Anything that you see at all, or?
Totally. Well, you kind of led right into probably the part of the book that we didn't really talk about. That second section is building those business fundamentals so that you can, as a foundation, so you can really scale on that and build on that.
Right.
And yeah, they're just to speak generally, we can get into more detail and the rest.
Mhm.
I know we're taking a break.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah.
there's a lot of leaks, there's a lot of inefficiencies for sure. And,
Mhm.
the areas just broadly that I like to really make sure. I believe in people first, but processes or systems, whatever you want to, whatever you want to call it, are crucial, and they need to be in place. And they not only need to be, in place in writing, people trained, and then they need to be managed. And lastly, there needs to be a process to update processes, and they can fail at any one of those points. So yeah, I really am a big advocate for some structure, like an org board, and then of course position descriptions, like Marcus Lemonis says on The Profit. Everyone should know what success looks like every day, very clearly, and what their roles are, and
Mhm.
then processes, and then a marketing business plan, and lastly a skills and gaps assessment in your organization would be that middle section, the way I divided up those fundamentals.
Hmm. Wow, it's a lot there to process, and really, and I think it's all. I hear the process being around a lot of planning, a lot of action, but also, as you mentioned earlier, strategic action, right? Because I think we can take action, and there's a certain dopamine hit we get just from that feeling of achievement. I got a few emails done. I sent out an invoice, or I read this contract for a client, or maybe it's you booked a new client, you did a PT session or a mastermind, but without some strategy behind it, it's easy to get caught up in just this idea of like, okay, I'm going to do, cross out the list of things on my agenda and feel good. But it's like, are we doing this in the most efficient way? Are we doing it in a way that's balanced and taking care of ourselves in the process? Which I think is similar to what you're saying, if I'm hearing you correctly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And believe it or not, time flies when we're having fun. Time for our next commercial break. So, folks, you're listening to Employment Law Today. I'm your host, Eric Sauver, employment law, business law attorney, and I'm with Dr. Lance Knaub here on Talk Radio NYC. When we come back, we'll talk about the pandemic and how some changes have impacted people's work-life balance and what you can do to stay balanced and on track. So stick around. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host a program, Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a business owner? Do you want to be a business owner? Do you work with business owners? Hi, I'm Stephen Fry, your small and medium-sized business or SMB guy, and I'm the host of the new show, Always Friday. While I love to have fun on my show, we take those Friday feelings of freedom and clarity to discuss popular topics on the minds of SMBs today. Please join me and my various special guests on Friday at 11 a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
Do you run or are ready to open your own business? Hi, I'm Jeremiah Fox. I've been operating and opening small business for the last 25 years, and I'm the host of the new show, The Entrepreneurial Web. Tune in every Friday at noon Eastern Time for insights and stories on the nuances of running small business right here on Fridays at noon, talkradio.nyc.
Hi, I am Joseph Franklin McElroy, host of the new podcast, Wise Content Creates Wealth. It airs on talkradio.nyc every Friday afternoon from 1 p.m. to 2. They say content is king. Well, wise content rules the world. Every episode features tools and tips for content marketing and business people telling the wise content stories of that success. Tune in every Friday from 1 p.m. to 2 on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Welcome back, folks, to Employment Law Today. I'm your host, Eric Sauver, here with Dr. Lance Knaub, and we're talking about work-life balance for business owners and entrepreneurs, and also work-life balance in light of COVID, after COVID. And what I'm hearing, Lance, from the first half of our show, I hear that in order to run a business and have a good work-life balance, we need the awareness that how important it is, right? Like, why should we pursue this? Why emphasize sleep and efficiency and rest while working hard, of course. I also hear this conversation about you can have a desire to have work-life balance, but you need a plan of action and concrete steps to put into practice. So one can say, I really love to exercise more. I really love to take off on Fridays, but if there aren't some practices in place, some plans and strategy, it doesn't just happen. So I appreciate your giving details around that. That was good that, to hear. I'm wondering how we can sort of segue into the pandemic. So you're working with entrepreneurs and Denali Consulting. How has the COVID-19 pandemic, have you seen, impacted work-life balance for business owners and entrepreneurs? What stuff are you seeing?
Yeah, I think that there's definitely some positives and there's some increased new challenges.
Mm.
There might be some opportunities with, when commutes completely went away, obviously that provided for some more time.
Mhm.
People had some more time with their families. Although, when the children are home, depending if you have children in your house, trying to oversee homeschool was a big challenge.
Mhm.
And, for example, I was looking at the data on female business owners and even
Mhm.
just the stress levels among owners. Like
Mm.
females were lower than males pre-pandemic, but they actually doubled their, and so they
Mm.
went up higher than males, and they went up a lot steeper, and they're greater than males, you know, from post-pandemic to pre-pandemic. So
Mm.
I think that another point as far as positives and negatives go, I think, alcohol use really,
Mm.
increased during the pandemic, some
Mhm.
things that, y- I'm more aware of. So I think obviously without the travel time, now that even for myself, now that I'm having some in-person meetings, it really,
Mhm.
um, you know, 45 minutes each way. I mean, that's a big chunk of time, an hour and a half, where you could have
Mm.
back-to-back meetings. But if you don't have some planning to, just as you and I, when we first met, maybe to have some breaks
Mhm.
between your meetings and really just put up
Yes.
some boundaries, it would be easy to get some Zoom fatigue and really overdo it in a lot of ways.
Absolutely. And that's, for our audience tonight, when we had been planning to talk by Zoom before the show and a little while back, you had asked, I think, to talk at 12:05. And I thought that was a great time to talk. And because I'm always seeing Zoom, we're booking things with clients, I'm booking for 11 a.m. or 11:30. And I thought it was I like that. And I think you mentioned that you had a mastermind class that you were doing before then that went until almost noon. You wanted to take a few minutes to stretch and breathe, and just a built-in break, which was very nice. I think I think also encouraged me to say, you know what, I just had a Zoom call as well. I'm going to get up and stretch, and and I hear you about the pandemic, how with things changing, there are the positives and the negatives, right? Like the commute. It's interesting. I can relate to that in that. So I live in New Jersey, and I commuted to New York City, and pre-pandemic, I would go in 4 days a week and sometimes five, and work from home 1 day a week, sometimes no days a week. And then in the pandemic, it was all home, just no traveling into the city, especially in the first year. And so the commute, which was an hour each way, almost an hour in theory, but it's New Jersey Transit, so those that might know, you add an extra 25 minutes for delays. But I certainly had all this time. But what I found, and I don't know if you found this with yourself or with your clients too, is that like at first there's all this extra time, but then the commute had a built-in structure that had some self-care built in. Like for me, I'd meditate for like 10 minutes in the train every morning. I'd journal for a bit, I'd listen to music, and then I would just close my eyes and then get off the train and start my day. And on the way home, I'd do a little work on my laptop, then close it, and I would put on some kind of comedy. But at home, it's easy to sort of just boundaries blur. You slide into like, now I'm working, now I'm taking care of my son, now I'm with my wife working on this, now I'm relaxing, and then. But so I'm wondering, like, did you have clients that had to reestablish work-life boundaries when their pandemic hit and they sort of morphed everything into one schedule?
Absolutely. I mean, everything was different.
Mm.
And, with children, it was really unpredictable, certainly in my house, with children potentially needing some help with their subjects at any moment.
Mhm.
Even, I did take a shot. And even on top of it all, we had to do one of the hardest things I ever had to do in business in March of 2020. And we had to furlough 50 people. We had to
Wow.
furlough, most
Yeah.
of our people. So there
Mhm.
was that. And then as we gradually brought people back, I still had our children in the home who could need help at a moment's notice. So, but people, adapted, as you, I'm sure, saw and noticed. People were more flexible
Mhm.
with, kids coming and going from, what previously would have been, more taboo from a professional meeting. So,
Yes.
and definitely obstacles and challenges are opportunities. And, that's
Mhm.
the one of the main takeaways for me from the pandemic and just in life in general. I love to look through that. But to answer your question, absolutely, there's been a lot of change, and it's interesting. A lot of people's relationships have either become stronger or been stretched.
Yeah.
So people are trying to work through that, from what I've seen.
Right, for sure. And yeah, it's definitely a mixed bag. And I think, that it sounds as if I imagine your clients who are going to Denali Consulting might be experiencing very similar things in their families and just the change and not to mention the extreme stress that puts on a person and their mental health. So really good to hear that, if people are out there listening tonight and they're experiencing an impact on the work-life balance from COVID, you're not alone. It's definitely a common thing. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Um,
And I think you brought up some really excellent points of journaling. Journaling is one of my favorite things. I've probably been journaling for about 5 years now. And really, if I don't journal to start my day, I actually, feel the loss. I feel the emptiness. And, I am studying a lot of, meditation and really trying to practice. I'd like to build 10 consistent minutes into that today. And, I'm fortunate to be surrounded by a lot of meditation experts. So I'm just, I'm reading a book right now from actually an attorney that he tore his Achilles tendon, Stephen Cohen, and he fell in love with meditation when he was gone through 6 months of therapy, and has a business in South Jersey that actually supports organizations, bringing meditation into organizations. So yeah, definitely. You touched on some key things. I think you have to be proactive and be resilient to the stresses and have some strategies in place. And even if you feel something coming, for example, guided breathing, right? The 4-7-8 method by Dr. Andrew Weil is
yes.
proven. Guided breathing is proven to actually objectively lower your blood pressure 4 millimeters of mercury and within minutes. So if somebody cuts you off in the car, I mean, take a deep breath, and you could use guided breathing, or you can use some meditation and use some of these strategies to prevent yourself from really becoming a pressure cooker.
So true. And that 4-7-8, from what I've heard, is you breathe, inhale for 4 seconds, hold, or a count of four, I should say. You hold it for the count of seven, and then slowly exhale for the count of eight. I've heard that also. I know it's a
Correct.
tool that's used in treating anxiety and also just helping with focus and insomnia.
Correct.
Yeah, I think we forget that these tools that we're talking about, things like meditation, exercise, deep breathing, are just as valid a business tool as, say, a P&L, a profit and loss type sheet, or a strategy for marketing. I think too often these tools used to be overlooked, right? You'd go to a business coach and they talk about, right, what are your sales? How do you generate sales? What's your marketing strategy? What's your hiring? And I see it with clients who are hiring folks and they're perhaps not aware of the labor laws around independent contractors and employees, and so then they're scared they don't hire enough people, and then they're understaffed and they're forced to like really overwork. And so I can see how our respective fields kind of you teach people how to hire and gain resources, and I of course help them not to make any mistakes that will cost them in DOL, Department of Labor fee penalties and fines and fees. So um,
Totally. I know on social, I asked you what the average, you know, suit amounted to, and I know in my book, I actually did some research, and it was somewhere between $60 and $100,000. I think the research that I found. So that's pretty significant for the average small business owner, for sure.
Absolutely. And it's one of those things where nothing's 100% guarantee. You can't guarantee you won't get sued, but you can certainly reduce the chances by making sure that you're paying enough attention to employment labor laws around hiring and firing, and making sure that you're paying attention, taking the pulse of your business. And I think that in order to have a good sense of what to read the room of your business, you have to yourself be grounded and healthy, because if you're just super exhausted and drained all the time, it's just not going to be conducive to observing employee conflict and things of that nature.
That's a great point. And, I was really reflecting on this before the show. And I guess the two things that I thought really, could minimize as much as possible, I think communication and just taking great care of your people
Mm,
will,
yeah.
both your team and of course your clients, right? There's definitely research they teach us in physical therapy school that Clients who really like their therapist or physician are less likely to sue.
That's true. And likewise, I think what I've seen is that, like with clients of mine, business owners, that if your employees, are less dissatisfied, they're happier, less disgruntled, that you're also much less likely to be sued because if someone is fired, let's say even for a valid purpose, they're less likely to internalize it and think it was based on a protected class status. So even if they end up losing the lawsuit, how much did you spend on attorney's fees, on costs, on litigating and time? So I think all this very much connects, and I think that we have a commercial break that we need to take. Again, time flies when you're having fun and big conversation. So when we come back, we'll talk about Denali Consulting and Breakthru Fitness. I want to hear from Lance about how he has his own unique approach, which you've been hearing about already, to these issues of work-life balance. So stick around to Talk Radio NYC for more employment law today after these commercial messages. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Are you a small business trying to navigate the COVID-19 related employment laws? Hello, I'm Eric Sauver, employment law business law attorney and host of the new radio show, Employment Law Today. On my show, we'll have guests to discuss the common employment law challenges business owners are facing during these trying times. Tune in on Tuesday evenings from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc.
Howdy, I am Joseph Franklin McElroy, host of the new podcast, Gateway to the Smokies. It airs on talkradio.nyc every Tuesday night from 6 p.m. to 7. Every episode is dedicated to memorable experiences in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park and surrounding areas. This show features experts and locals who expound upon the richness of culture, history, and adventure that awaits you in the Smokies. Tune in every Tuesday from 6 p.m. to 7 on talkradio.nyc.
Do you love or are you intrigued about New York City and its neighborhoods? I'm Jeff Goodman, host of Rediscovering New York, a weekly show that showcases New York's history and its extraordinary neighborhoods. Every Tuesday live at 7 p.m., we focus on a particular neighborhood and explore its history, its vibe, its feel, and its energy. Tune in live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Welcome back, folks, to Employment Law Today. I'm your host, Eric Sauver, employment law business law attorney, and here tonight with my guest, Lance Knaub, Dr. Lance Knaub, who is talking about work-life balance and how he helps his clients with Denali Consulting and Breakthru Fitness to achieve that. Really great topic. I think it's so important to convey to business owners, employers, and even employees that without some kind of balance, you get to that point of diminishing returns, and I think that if we don't focus on carving out time for self-care and having that health, it doesn't ultimately help. Like the sleep you gave is a great example. If you're not sleeping, you may be working more hours, but the quality of those hours can diminish. So I appreciate just, you're sharing that with our audience tonight. Really helpful, I think, to hear that.
Fantastic. Absolutely.
Yeah. I was wondering, it kind of segues into the next question, perhaps. We're talking about Denali Consulting and Breakthru Fitness, and I'm wondering, like, how would you say your businesses distinguish themselves from other, let's say, physical therapy or other business consulting? What maybe unique philosophies do you take or methods? If you want to tell us a little bit more about that.
Of course. So with
Mhm.
Breakthru Physical Therapy and Fitness, we uniquely bring physical therapy and fitness together in one organization under one roof so that the client's best interest is first and foremost. Many physical therapy or fitness companies subcontract out massage or personal training or physical therapy, depending if you're on the fitness or physical therapy side. So really having all these, services within one organization, we can look at the client and really have, fiduciary interest and don't have this conflict like I've seen in many organizations. And that's why I was passionate about bringing that together. And we also look at the whole person and the big picture. And, we're very functional. And, functional, what that means is, as far as exercise goes, on the fitness side, people might like to sit on a machine and just do a traditional pressing movement for their front, chest, and shoulders, or just do a knee extension and just extend their legs. And either of those examples just works one muscle group by itself, where you could do a push-up or a squat, and now you're working your core and you're working multiple muscle groups together. And it's going to help you more in real life. If you have to push something or pick something up, you're burning more calories, you're helping your bone density, you're going to build more musculature, and you're also developing balance at the same time. So there's enormous amount of greater benefits just in that example. And part of like looking at the whole person, the big picture, we like to think on our own. At Breakthru, we're really experts in, people come off the street to us, like physical therapists are skilled in doing that. And even if somebody comes in with an ankle problem, we're going to look at the whole person. I have a patient right now that came in with an Achilles problem, and they've had a persisting back problem. They had tingling in their other side, in their calf, for years, and low back pain. And we were able to, with what we call mechanical or McKenzie treatment, fix that in 2 sessions. And their Achilles tendon problem is going to take 4 to 6 weeks, but they are thrilled. So those are just some of the things on the Breakthru side that we love. And, I didn't even mention the continuum. So no matter where someone enters, because we have the fitness component, we move them on to health and fitness. We look at it as a dotted line. So that's very special to us. And with Denali, I really love to customize, get to know somebody and really customize things. I prefer not to jump into the immediate fires and challenges they have. So I really nudge / force them to do some deep thinking and, create a business plan. I realized that 90+% of small business owners don't have a business plan in place. And I also realized they weren't going to break away and do 40, 80, 120-hour traditional plan. So I created a 2-hour process, and I have people take a first cut at it, and then I guide them through a fast and functional process that's completely adequate for businesses and help them make it come to life. So, those are a couple of the big things that jump to mind. I know there's more. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. No, I think it's just kind of taking it in here. It's good to know. I do hear commonalities. I hear the big picture, getting to know the person, getting to know the business. So that's all good to know. I think that's becoming, it's just so important. We're starting to see how it's important to look at a whole situation, not just like in physical therapy, the elbow, right? It's what are they doing? What else is going on? So I think that's good to know that approach exists within your Breakthru Physical Therapy and within your Denali Consulting as well.
You make a great point. I was at a program a couple of years ago at Arcadia University, which has one of the top ranked physical therapy programs. And, in medicine, we've always looked at like orthopedics and neuro as like towers or silos. And the conference was bringing orthopedics and neuro together because they work together, right? ACL, the common sports injury, and the knee. It's really your brain that controls the position of your body, which actually can prevent injuries and also is going to help you, rehab that. And it's the same with entrepreneurs and for us individually. That's why I put the mental health chapter at the beginning, because our brains are our central processing unit, and, they control everything. And we've got the unique advantage. It's a pro and a con that every single day our brain kind of reboots. So we have the opportunity to shift our mindset and get it right every day, but we also have the challenge that it takes a little bit of work. So we have to decide which one of those things, journaling, meditation, guided breathing, that we're going to take advantage of.
Absolutely. I think it's so true that, the brain and, every day we need to reboot, we need to focus on things we do for the health of our business, things we do for the health of our mind, our body, our spirit. So to me, it's the analogy of like, right, every day, one gets up, they shower, brush their teeth, comb their hair, shave, whatever the case may be. eat breakfast, get dressed. And it's like you can't get up on Thursday and say, well, I took showers all week and brushed my teeth twice every day, so I'm just gonna wing it. I'm gonna ride the coattails of that, for the next, So I think really good to hit that the message of every day is a reboot. And
Totally. And that's a great point with brushing your teeth, for example. Somebody I
Mhm.
really emulate, John Lee Dumas, his fiance, Kate Erickson, she just shared that analogy with habit building, like brushing your teeth. These other things that we have to decide which area of our life we want to improve and make it just like brushing our teeth, make it a habit, make it a non-negotiable, build it into our lifestyle.
Very, I think, well said for sure, Lance. We've got about 2 minutes left, believe it or not. So what I'll do is I'm going to give you a minute or so. I'll share the screen so people can see your contact information. Bear with me 1 second. If I can't do it in 30 seconds, I will just share it on social media tomorrow. Well, here we go. This is a screenshot for Dr. Lance Knaub. If people can see this, is that nothing else in the background, right? Okay, there we go. So this is Dr. Lance Knaub on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and Clubhouse. Interesting connection there. I'm going to stop share. And Lance, how can people find you? Can you give us a brief, just maybe website, phone number?
Absolutely. My email is drlanceKnaub@denaliconsultingteam.com. At Instagram at Dr. Lance Knaub. I've got a Facebook group called the 4% Breakthrough, named after the book, which is a group meant to support entrepreneurs. So if you're interested in that, and we're focused on the same tenets as the book, personal development, business fundamentals, and actionable health and lifestyle information and changes. So please consider that. On Thursdays, we run a Clubhouse group called Hot Seat Small Business Solutions for You. So we feature spotlight/hot seat an entrepreneur or two every week, and we give them our best guidance and a couple special offers as well for your audience. As I mentioned, I really love helping entrepreneurs step back, break free from the day-to-day grind and the noise and the chaos, and do some strategic thinking. And
so sorry to interrupt. We only got about 30 seconds left. My apologies. But I wanted to make sure that I give you a proper intro and a thank you, rather, an outro. So folks, tune in every Tuesday to Employment Law Today. I'm your host, Eric Sauver. Lance, Dr. Lance Knaub, thank you so much for joining us. Again, apologies to cut in, but I just wanted to make sure we didn't get cut.
You're absolutely good. So if anyone would like a complimentary version of that, Denali Consulting Team /strategy, and you can get this, Denali Consulting Team /strategy. Yes. And you can get a copy of that. And if anybody takes a first cut at it, I will offer a complimentary 20-minute strategy calls to help you fill in any gaps and walk you through any sticking points and create a fast and functional business plan for you.
Lance, Dr. Lance Knaub, thank you so much. Have a wonderful night, and everyone take care, and great to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.